Hello and welcome to our podcast DH4IL or DHI4L, Digital Health Innovations for Long Life. Today we have Mr. Aditya with us. There are two ways of probably introducing a person that me talking a long time about introduction, but I think the much better way is ask Mr. Aditya a lot of questions and let him introduce himself. Welcome to our studio and welcome to our podcast, Mr. Aditya.
Thank you, Dr. Suresh. I'm Aditya Tallapragada from AKT Health. I've been working in Japan since 2010, 11, or even before that. I've been associated working with Japan for more than 18 years of my life there. Mostly in clinical research, digital solutions, and data analytics.
When and where were you born, Mr. Aditya? So if we can go all the way to the beginning.
Yeah, actually, I was born in West Godavari, which is actually
The Konaseema coast.
yes, that's the Andhra Pradesh right now. I was born in a place called Konaseema. My mother comes from there. My father is from Hyderabad, but my mother came from West Godavari, so I was born in the West Godavari region.
And where did the schooling and college happen?
My father was in police department, I did my school in Begumpet, and then for majority of my schooling happened in a school called Vignan Vidyalayam, which is actually in Nizampet somewhere. It was at the time Nizampet was like desert. I used to travel all the way from Begumpet to Nizampet, so it was a long travel every day, but it was a great school. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so when did you first get into college, or which was the first college that you got into?
So basically MSET was one of the major tests at the time. So I got a seat in mechanical engineering in a college called ASR College of Engineering. Of course, since I was born in West Godavari, I was actually kind of interested in actually studying there back again at the time, and I studied mechanical engineering in ASR College of Engineering in Tanuku, which was where I did my mechanical engineering.
Can we put a year to this? I mean, which year you joined college, which year you were born, if that is even okay with you?
Yeah, sure. I graduated in 2007.
Okay.
I joined, I think, in 2003. I joined 2003 and graduated 2007. After that, I did a lot of courses, mostly on different colleges and universities, but they were not like full time. They were just like part time courses. But I would say mechanical engineering was the major college.
Mm-hmm. And after college, how did the career start?
So yeah, since I told you I was a mechanical engineer, I was looking for jobs around automobile industry because I was so inspired by automobiles and cars and everything. So I ended up interviewing for a lot of mechanical engineering companies, and then first time I was traveling to Chennai to do a mechanical engineering interview. Then I met a person. He said, "Okay, you are a mechanical engineer. If you learn Japanese, you could get better job opportunities." So I thought that person was motivated me to actually think about Japan. What happened was then my interest was towards automobiles and mechanical engineering and Japan. So that's where one more angle or dimension to my life came up, especially with the Japan. And then I went to Chennai.
Where did you learn Japanese then?
Actually, that's another story. I went to Pune immediately. And then in Pune, I studied Japanese for a bit in Indo-Japanese Institute, which is a very small institute. But at that time, when I was researching about Japanese language, this was in 2007. So I went to Chennai. My interview didn't go through well. Then I learned about a lot of Japanese universities. Maybe I thought if I learned Japanese, I would end up in a good career opportunity. So I went to Pune. Pune is really famous for Japanese institutes because you see there's a an institute called Ranade, which is very famous for Japanese language training at the time. And then even if you look at companies like Rakuten and other big Japanese companies, they come and actually hire their fresh graduates from Pune. It's because of the Japanese language institutions that Pune had. So that was the kind of drive for me to go to Pune and study Japanese language. But then I was immediately, when I updated my resume that I am learning Japanese language, I immediately got a call from a Japanese company called Mayakawa. And then I couldn't learn Japanese, but I ended up in a Japanese company because I updated my resume saying that I'm learning Japanese. So that was a very good opportunity for me. Then I went to Japan for a small training. So that literally changed my entire life about thinking how Japan is. I only went there for like few weeks, but then I realized that was in 2008. That's when I realized, okay, this country, the way they operate, the way they work was really great. And then I came back to Japan, came back to Hyderabad, and then I was in Pune. I was looking for companies who were into, Japan. That's when I kind of found a company which was really next to my house. They were having something like India, Japan, and USA. So I went there and asked them, do you have any jobs in Japan? So they said, we don't have anything in Japan, but if you want to really work for Japanese markets, we would be interested in interviewing you. So then I actually interviewed in company. That company turned out to be a clinical research company.
Okay.
And that's how my journey from mechanical engineer to Japan and then Japan to clinical research got connected. And then I worked in that company from 2009. And then the company name is MacroCare, this very, very famous for clinical research. And then I developed their business for Japan markets. I used to be working from Hyderabad, but I got an opportunity to go to Japan every 3 months, as promised by the company. And then I was traveling. I was getting closer to Japan. Then after my marriage, I decided to move to Japan in end of 2011. I got married and decided to move to Japan. And then from there, till now, I'm still based there. It's been almost 15 years now, but overall my association with that country has been quite long.
I think it's very interesting to hear your career journey. And in fact, I think I also first landed up in Japan in about 2008 again for my PhD. I also got married in 2008 and then we came back. So I think those are some of the common things and some of the differences also. Sidestepping a little bit, so you said that you liked automobiles, you like Japan. So what's the car that you like most?
I now drive both. Although I'm a very big fan of Japan, I still drive both my cars are German cars. I drive a G-Wagon and a 911 Porsche. And then those are the two cars. And then even in Hyderabad, I have an Audi. So mostly, although my love towards Japan has been there, but I got a very less opportunity to drive Japanese cars. But mostly, I've been driving German cars. I like Japanese cars too, but then I do circuit racing. Whenever I practice racing, I prefer racing in a Subaru or 86 Toyota's 86 for practice. Then we go to the bigger car, which makes you more easier to drive on the circuit. So I still love a lot of automobiles. I have a huge collection of cars in Japan. If you are ever in Japan, definitely you should try one of them.
That sounds fantastic. Hopefully, after this podcast, we'll request for the photos at least and then show it on the podcast. Any interest in bikes?
No, I'm not a really good bike driver. I'm looking at the people tweaking into the gaps. I was always afraid of driving bikes, so I loved cars all the time. So I'm not much of a bike guy.
I think we also are so-called part of this generation where we started shifting from analog to digital devices. So do you remember your first mobile phone, first laptop?
my first mobile phone I still have with me.
Wow.
It's a Tata Cellular, like Tata Idea, I think. It's like a small Motorola phone. It's like 1,200 rupees. It's a 20 years 20 years validity if you pay 1,200 rupees. And then that phone I still have it with me. It's still in my desk in Japan. And then of course even before that actually I had a very big Motorola phone which was like a big one with
So the brick sort of a thing.
yeah, it's a
Walkie-talkie.
Yeah, it's like you could break a head with some with that. It was such a big one. Yeah, because my engineering was in 2003. That's when you see the huge Nokia craze was there. 1100, 3300s, and then there's a huge Nokia fan at that time. But then Motorola took up a bit. So I think especially people who are born in the 80s, especially they have seen a huge shift in terms of how the technology has been moving, because we've seen that flip phones to these touch phones, and then also we've operated the phones which we dial in.
Yeah, yes.
My big dad,
And you have to memorize and remember those numbers also.
Yes. We even now, if you look at all my numbers, they are still there from 2003, 2004.
Okay.
So I still remember the same numbers, because the only reason why we have those fancy numbers concept now is because we have to remember those numbers.
Do you remember your first laptop?
My first laptop, first it was a
Computer, desktop
computer. That was actually my dad's brother, actually my cousin, big dad. He's very good at assembling stuff. So he assembled one that was in like 2000s. Actually, he's a very good. And then I remember all those floppy disks. We used to have small games and everything. Yeah. And then we have. Even before the 2-inch floppy disk, we used to have like 3-inch floppy disks as well, the bigger ones. We used that one as well to play. Now the Pac-Man, but in my computer, we used to call Gobman. We used to have that, and then I used to play a lot of Contra. There's a game called Contra, and then Mario. I played all those games in the computer.
Yeah. Do you travel a lot?
Now. Huge. Now I'm traveling a lot. This year I can't even believe how many countries I've covered. This year I've traveled a lot.
Any particular country that you like?
Even though I traveled a lot of countries, I still like Japan the best, because I've come comparing.
Other than Japan and perhaps India.
Other than Japan. I like France, because I was in the southern part of France, in the Cannes, Nice area. It was quite relaxing. I also like Belgium a lot. Because I was in the Belgium has two zones. One is the French speaking, and another is Dutch speaking. So I was close to Antwerp, near the Netherlands. So I like that place, very, very calm. I was there in Antwerp I've been there for like 7 to 10 times projects.
Excuse me, sorry.
So I like Belgium. I like Switzerland a bit, but mostly it was for work. These countries, European countries, are quite good. We were discussing about. I think we were discussing about the infrastructure these European countries have. So I think after Japan, I think I really like European countries, especially not the capital cities, but the second, the third tier cities.
Okay. Any specific cuisine or food that you like? Excuse me, sorry.
In terms of cuisine, I really like spice. So I love Mexican food. I like Lebanese food a lot, because Lebanese food has a lot of vegetables, a lot of flavor to it. So my top 3 would be Mexican, Lebanese, and then of course we have the other foods in the Middle East. I like a lot of those, apart from Japanese and Indian for sure.
Okay. Well, it's great to know about your personal likes and your personal interests. Today we are here at Mallareddy Vishwavidyapit to broadly talk about digital health. As you are aware, we have started India's first school of digital health, and you through clinical research and then through medical technologies, you have also been associated with digital health in several ways. In fact, it's known as digital health now, but then previously it was known as big data for health, health informatics, and probably by several other names. In your opinion, how can digital health be helpful to people, maybe to the health systems? I'm not asking about how digital health can, make the lives of people today better, but in a fairly futuristic, innovative, imaginative way. How do you think digital health can transform the lives 5 years or 10 years down the line, in your opinion?
So, yeah. So from my perspective, I think I see digital health from four angles. The one is from the patient perspective. The other is from the provider, hospitals or any provider or caregiver perspective. And third one is the pharma, biotechs, the research side of it. And the fourth one is the insurance part of it. So digital health is broadly, from my perspective, is divided into four. But unless all these four are very well interconnected, we don't see the transformation happening, because insurance companies, what they want to do is...
Assuming that like in future somehow they get interconnected, how do you think like the transformation will be?
I think cheaper care, especially the transformation, digital health for me is faster care and a cheaper care and more accessible even to the rural area, because digital health should first look at the accessibility or the access for the care for the rural areas. So only that is happening through proper transformation, especially the virtual care or the telemedicine or the e-health, whatever we are calling. I think that's where. And then in order to do this digital health accessible to the rural areas, what I believe is all these insurance companies and the research companies, they who are still not focused on these technologies for their reimbursement policies or their research, should include more of their virtual care or digital health into their research as well. So I believe every trial or every test that's happening should have a component where they are including this telehealth, virtual health component inside there, so that it's more accessible to the rural areas, because we are always talking about people who could come to the hospital.
Yes.
So, but I think people should focus their research more on a component where you actually access the needy and the people who are not able to come to the. That's where the transformation, I think, would be the best, because we cannot bring everyone to the hospital. Hospital has to go to them. And then this is not happening. The only reason is because in their testing or in their research, they're not including this component where they cater to this needs.
Can we kind of say that from hospital as a facility to provide care, digital health would make healthcare closer to people, especially home-based care, or at least closer to community-based care that people who can actually access better?
Yes, I think so, because patient support programs, the concept of patient support programs was not there earlier. Especially they were there, but very, very fragmented. But now, because of the digital health, because of the multi-channel or omni-channel approach of these pharma companies or the insurance companies, I think it's getting very closer to the patient. And then everyone has become more patient-centric, especially because of the digital technologies. I think this should grow very, very fast. I think every component that's being served right now in the providers or the caregiver side, I think a digital component is involved. It's still not structured that way compared to what we want it to be, but I think we are getting there.
Yeah, I think as you rightly said, now presently the care that we are providing is facility based and analog, and In fact, when we say healthcare, at least in our opinion, it's like 1,000 microservices. It's not one singular care.
Yeah.
And for most of these components, there is a digital element that is being added, and hopefully 5 years, 10 years down the line, or sometime in the near future, a lot of these things could get potentially integrated, and that's when the transformative benefits of digital health could actually happen. Now, taking maybe a side step, we'll go back to tracing your career. So now you have shifted to Japan, or now you're married and then you're shifted to Japan. So how is your career progressing in Japan now?
So after I went back to Japan, I initially worked in a small sales company that too focused on healthcare sales. Then I moved again to a data company, which was called Heartbeat Experts at the time. The Heartbeat Experts immediately got acquired by Reuters Healthcare. Reuters Healthcare, they were like a private equity. They were acquired by a private equity, and then this private equity sold it to IBM Watson Health. So my entire career in Japan was actually around these companies. So the Reuters Healthcare, they had almost 30 years of insurance claims data. They have all these patient journeys and everything. So I was working on those analysis. So I had a good exposure to very, very old data. And then when IBM acquired us, we became a part of the PwC group inside the IBM Japan. And then it was Watson was there. There was a Watson Health, there was IBM, there was a consulting group. So there was like too many groups inside a big company, and I was coming from a very small company sitting in a small startup office in Japan. Suddenly we are in a very big company where too many divisions. So I think my career was, started from working with the commercial teams, the key opinion leaders, the doctors. Then I started working with the treatment pathways. That's what we used to call when I was in the Reuters Healthcare. Then this got acquired by IBM Watson. We tried a lot of things with the data. It was not really at the time. It's more of an advanced analytics and machine learning rather than AI. Of course, Watson claimed that they have very powerful AI engine, but because of the data gaps, and then we didn't have any generative capabilities at that time. So we were purely depending on the training data, on the test data for create these machine learning models. So yeah, that's what my career looked like, from the data on the key opinion leader, clinical research side. Then I worked on the patient treatment pathways, and then finally when I was in IBM Watson, I decided maybe I should try something on my own, because most of the companies I used to work with, be it Truven or the Reuters or the IBM Watson, they used to actually outsource everything to India and get it done in India. So at the time, it was like, it was 2016. It was a good opportunity for me to see if I could do something on my own, or just go back to India and work as an analyst or as a consultant in any of the consulting firms. So then that's when I started AKT Health as a small data analytics company. That's why you see our company in India is AKT Health Analytics, but rest of the world it's AKT Health. So yeah, that's after that. Of course, it's been now 9 years. We are just surviving the changes and the transformation that's happening.
Well, I think it's survival for all companies in most cases. So what does your company do? I mean, what are the areas that your company focuses on?
So initially when we started, we were focusing on the data, because from the background that I come in is from the data. And then of course, implementation of all the technologies. Even now, if I actually pull out a concept from 10 years back, which has advanced analytic capabilities. Even we see that a lot of pharmaceutical companies in Japan are still using these old techniques. That's when I came, and then what we did was we actually removed the black box thing from big consulting companies and started to do small ad hoc analytics and then show them more clearly. For example, they have an overall corporate strategy, but we we made it into small, like a clinical analytics, commercial analytics, outcomes research, and technology. So we've divided the entire clinical, medical, commercial. So we are more of a data-driven technology company. We still work with a lot of pharmaceutical companies. On the clinical space, we do like publication writing, medical affairs, and on the commercial side, we work on omni-channel optimization, Salesforce optimization. On the medical side, we do a lot of publication writing and things like that. And we also, the recent area that we have been doing a lot is health economics and outcomes research. This is a mix of public health, where you do burden of analysis, you do disease progression, these kind of studies, which would include a population health analytics as well to some extent, because of the digital health again. Because in order for us to implement the digital health, the analytics has to happen on population. See if it works on a wider population. So that's where I think these are the 4 areas that we are working right now.
And I believe you are also getting into medical devices, or you already got into medical devices.
We do have a medical device wing where we actually got an approval of class 2 medical device, which is software as a medical device. So this was very tough for us, because we, being a data company, we actually developed an app where we used to collect data from different devices. But then every doctor we approached or every hospital we approached, they asked about, how do you manage this data? Will you be responsible for the data that you're collecting? So that's when we thought, okay, in order for the doctors to believe us on the data, we have to be regulated. So that's when the concept of software as a medical device for a mobile app. So there are very few mobile apps in the market that you see which collect the data and which are regulated. So in order to remove that barrier of actually having this ambiguity of whether or not this application would what they would do with the data, so we got registered with the Japanese regulatory body. That's when the trust builds, because they know that every data point that we collect has to be submitted to the regulatory body. So that's when all these doctors from the hospitals started to believe in the technology, because it's been regulated right now. So that's where we wanted to move into digital technologies, but then the unless and until the regulation thing didn't happen, we were not able to put this into different hospitals. Now that we have done, now we see a lot of clinical trials they wanted to do, and then we are integrating with more and more devices, and then other companies who also want to do trials, who have the medical devices, are integrating with our app. So that's how we got into this entire medical device thing. Now we also started to manufacture our own ECG patch with a temperature sensor. You have a lot of ECG patches, but we also wanted to do a temperature sensor, and then we are doing a trial in on neutropenic fever after chemotherapy. So we have been able to predict the hospitalization like almost 10 to 12 hours earlier than the traditional. So these are the few things that we've started to do. Still at a trial stage, and that too in Japan. The idea is to take it to the other parts of the world as well.
Okay. Few follow-up questions on that. When you mentioned about the app, what does the app actually do? What broad indicators does the app actually collect, and then how does that help with the treatment pathway or the healthcare workflow? That's number one. The second is, you also mentioned about taking it for regulatory approvals. Can you briefly kind of trace the pathway and then say how the approvals go through?
So first I'll start with the care part. So what we have done is we have identified few areas that we would be working. For example, the oncology area is one of the biggest one for us to monitor in Japan. So for that, we need to have heart rate variability, blood pressure. We need to have few. So what we have done is we've actually picked off-the-shelf medical devices which are already approved in Japan. We collaborated with them, and then we got their SDKs integrated with our app. Now you have a regulated medical device, you have a regulated mobile app. With this combination, we've started to actually identify potential remote patient monitoring clinical trials, so that it doesn't have to be a particular, for example, oncology needs remote patient monitoring, or we call decentralized clinical trials as well right now. Because we are not using only hospital as the site, we are also doing it home. We are using multiple devices. We are also sometimes sending a caregiver to the home. So it's now a bit more decentralized. So we are talking about decentralized clinical trials. That's one of the areas that we have invested a lot in the last couple of years, especially because of the COVID. A lot more doctors become flexible in using these remote technologies, and then there was some kind of ambiguity in terms of whether or not it's regulated. That's when we started applying for a regulatory body, the first thing they asked us, like, why do you even need a regulatory approval? Because this is a mobile app, and then you are not, affecting anything. Then what we said was, sometimes there are some alerts which we usually give it to, for example, we give it to care nurses or doctors. But there are some certain cases where we have to alert the people who are actually monitoring. They are not medically qualified people. So when you give an alert using a mobile app, that will be termed as a medical device.
Yeah, because you are still influencing the treatment pathway.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's when we thought, okay, once you clear this hurdle, and then when we have more people who are actually taking care of the person who is in the undergoing the treatment, the better it is. So that's what we thought, okay, having this regulatory approval. But it was not easy. We first initially they said, okay, class 1 is not required, then go for class 2. So we applied for class 2, then class 2A, class 2B. So how do we do it? Then they said, okay, you have to connect at least with one device to make it like a complete package, and then go for an approval. So every time, so this is like a biotech.
But in some ways that also complicates the issue, right? So you actually came out with a relatively multi-application software platform, and then you are now getting approval only for one single pathway. And then if you want to use it for 10 different pathways, then it's 10 different applications and 10 different approvals.
It's like a new indication. Just that's what I was trying to say. When you release a drug, you actually apply for a new indication for every every new thing that's happening on the drug. You apply for a new indication approval. So we initially got for an ECG patch, then we started applying for a glucose patch, then we applied for so these are like indication approvals. Once you get the main approval,
so at least the process is a little bit smoother and faster,
and also it gives an advantage for us to actually go to other countries as well. So the other countries, there is still there are some loopholes where you actually use a registered medical device, and then we will not use their SDKs, and then completely say that, okay, this is your responsibility in how you collect the data, and then they only pass us. So we are doing some trials in other countries where we are actually pushing all the responsibility to the medical device company, rather than trying to put everything on us and then trying to get an approval for that particular treatment pathway and then delaying the entire process. We are kind of pushing some kind of burden on the medical device companies.
So all this work, or probably most of the work, is done in Japan, and I'm not sure if I should term your company as a startup company, but I'm assuming it's not. How is the ecosystem in Japan, and how is the process of going through this, starting up a company and then reaching the present stage? How is the ecosystem support you? And I'm assuming Japan has its own unique challenges. So if you can talk about both the positives and I wouldn't call it as negatives, but rather a few extra steps that you have to take in the name of challenges, that would be helpful.
So actually, it's a quite interesting question, because startup, the word startup in Japan is quite, interesting, because when we do a pitch to a client, we say, okay, we are a seven-year-old startup company. Now that's a very, very common thing in Japan. So we are a very, very, very startup company. We will not be termed as startup when we have more than 50 employees. That's what the private equity will not quicken until we have 50 employees in Japan. It's quite complicated there on how it's traditionally structured. For us, or at least for me when I started, what happened was Japan was quite open to adopt new technologies. All these years they have been pushing digital transformation. There was after Abe-san, there was a new prime minister called Suga-san, who was kind of a right hand for Abe-san. So he pushed a lot of digital transformation. And in Japan, how it works? In Japan, you don't have the structure of venture capitalism. You have entrepreneurship. So all these bigger companies, every company, they'll have young teams sitting there developing their own products. So there is I don't know the English word, like the Japanese word says Shinkiji Gyokayatsubu, means like new corporation starting team. So they have to identify new corporations and actually merge them into bigger companies. Okay. So they have entrepreneurship and then merging. So all the time what we are doing is every time we come up with a new technology or every time we come up with a new solution, you see Mitsubishi or the Hitachis or Fujitsu's coming to us and actually asking us to kind of merge one of our solutions into their processes so that they will open up their clientele. Even right now, most of our bigger clients actually have come because we are actually working with a bigger company. Okay. And then the second advantage was like, okay, the India factor was very big last 5 years, the India factor, was also helping us in terms of technology part, where they think that it's better to outsource to India and then rather than hiring a Japanese speaking person in Japan. The concept of actually bringing all the people to Japan and working in their offices slightly changed last few years, and then they started to learn a bit more of outsourcing. Still, a majority of outsourcing goes to Vietnam compared to India, but I think overall, if you look at the structure, we have still the entire Japan is run by these big conglomerates or the big companies where they have entrepreneurship or new, identifying new companies to merge into those companies. I think we can discuss a bit more later on how they treat digital health. This is an interesting concept that we'll discuss later, but I think that's how they are structured in terms of identifying these new startups.
So the idea is there's some kind of a supporting ecosystem and a way forward rather than a startup company kind of trying to in some way struggle and then do things all by themselves. So there's some kind of a way forward there. You have been heavily into analytics and also into now the medical devices plus also the software as a device itself. What is your opinion on how AI is actually changing all these three areas? Maybe if we can start electronic health records as a proxy for analytics, and then how AI is getting into medical devices, how AI is transforming digital software as digital therapeutics. Now it's not just simply prescription, but as actually a continuity of care. And you also mentioned several areas where devices are actually monitoring the patient, and also even something as simple as an alert is a component of continuing therapy and then can potentially play a critical role. So there are a lot of ways AI is actually transforming different areas. So in your experience, how do you think things are actually changing?
So I will actually clearly mention it from our perspective and on the product that we are building right now. So we have built a product called Hakase in Japan. Japanese Hakase means professor or a scholar. So what we have done is we have actually split the entire AI component of the Hakase product into three areas. One is the clinical area, the second is the care, and the third is commercial. So when you talk about clinical space is also once again where you have preclinical, you have all these clinical trials, and then you have all these biotech, molecule drug discovery and all these things. So I'm not going to go into details about all these things, but what I will start is once again you have care, where we are trying to influence care by all these data-driven technologies or all the analytics and things like that. So whenever, for example, if I go to the clinical space, what happens is when I talk to a pharmaceutical company and tell them that, okay, this is where you could actually input all your data and then it will influence your protocol. Obviously, there will be so many questions on where the data is coming from, whether we could trust it, how we have more questions than actually saying, wow, this is good. So there was not even a single, even though the results look wow, the trust factor in terms of how the data is been coming, whether or not I could trust, I know the answer would be like this, but I need a validation. So rather than becoming, so what AI has helped is just to create that, generate tons of data, put it all together. So we call it like more of like a rules-based algorithms or rules-based triages rather than AI itself. So that's on the clinical side. Once again, on the care side, if you include even a slightest factor of AI component in any of your products, outright the regulatory body will reject, because they will say that we don't have enough data to verify your algorithms. So I think it's taking a lot of time, especially, but in some areas when you give proper outcomes or real world evidence showing that these are all the publications, these are all the data points, these are all the factors that we have actually included. So then there is a slight bit of chance, but then still it's taking a lot of time to get an approval. But then on the third factor, which is the commercial factor, where like you look at the sales data, look at the channel data. This is a very easier approach in entire, like insurance companies who look at all the numbers, the corporates who look at their entire corporate health, how it's going. This is one area where adoption has been very fast and then very high because it's not affecting people's life. But other two areas where on the research side, the clinical research side and the care side, it's very, very difficult to actually have a solution. So right now what we are doing is we are only implementing this solution on existing products. If you already have an existing product, add an AI component to it and just show them the range or and just speed up the process. So mostly it's on the operation side rather than like clearly supporting the research. So I think it's a very, very long way to go unless and until that we have huge amounts of data where everyone is collaborating. So I'll give a small example with a company called Medidata, Rave. So they are an EDC company. All these years, they're one of the biggest electronic data capture company. So they have huge data, which is actually sitting on their electronic data capture system. Now, technically, all this data belongs to a pharmaceutical company who is actually sponsoring that clinical trial. But Medidata obviously has been training on that data. So there is always this, question about who this data actually belongs to. Whether or not can I train on that data. If the data is being trained, and then if other company wants to use it, whether it's really, legal to use a proprietary data of some other company to do support research of other company. So we also had so many discussions on this, and then on the clinical side where if you have a controlled arm, which is all the companies are doing a similar control arm, why not we actually club and reduce the burden on the system and then get trials faster. So everyone is competing so much with each other and then everyone is doing the same thing. So I think what we see is this is not going anywhere end of the day.
I think although people say that there's a lot of potential with AI, I think there's also a lot of regulatory challenges with AI because for maybe last 50 years or something, we have been used to a certain set of way where broadly we understand each and every step, and the moment there is artificial intelligence, which is an additional layer of intelligence, comes in and says, there are different ways of doing probably the same thing. In some ways, these pathways are not open to additional levels of intelligence. So I think even the regulatory pathways have to, at some point in time, maybe transform before the full transformation of AI can actually reach people. So I think this is a very critical step where regulations have to first understand or figure out how do we I wouldn't call it as support, but at least facilitate the progress of AI into healthcare. So I think there are a lot of challenges. In the same area, I mean, not only regulation has to kind of change, but also education has to change. What we taught previously and what we teach now, or maybe what we want to teach in the future, I think again needs to transform. And this is where, as you are aware, at Mallareddy Vishwavidyapith, we have started India's first school of digital health. You come from a background of mechanical engineering, but I think you're doing a lot of work in clinical research, medical devices.
Yeah.
And I don't think if I start asking about cars or mobility, you're not going to answer them as eloquently as you did with regard to clinical trials. But that's how career takes us, and then we actually learn a lot as we keep going along. So, in your opinion, with this experience, especially from different countries, what do you think should be taught to our new students?
I think the thing that you have started a digital health school, that itself speaks a lot, because what's quite important in all the education systems is including that digital component in every aspect of it. So in our every aspect of life has changed, and digital component has been increasing in the day-to-day life. But the curriculum part, we are still following the digital component. The inclusion of digital component has been very less. So I think, as I was talking earlier, whenever you do a clinical trial, let's say you have 100 patients, I think we should at least include 20 patients or a 20% who are actually undergoing virtual care or remote care or telehealth, who are using mobile phones. This has to be there, and then this inclusion, we have to look that data that's coming from these remote technologies or digital health technologies, compare with the traditional data, tell them how faster we are able to do it, how better we are able to get the data. And then also, one of the biggest challenges that we see here right now is the patient recruitment. We know that there is a person who is suffering from certain disease, but because of our traditional system or traditional education that we have, that unless and until that patient approaches and comes to the hospital, you are not able to identify that. I think this is where I think every test that we do, every research that we do, there has to be a definitive digital component into it. Understanding how the market has changed, understanding how we perceive digital component. Right now, you also spoke about regulatory affairs. The reason the regulatory people are not equipped is that because the education system doesn't have a digital component right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So if this part has to be the top of the mind. Okay, digital first, maybe.
In fact, this is something that we are also trying to slowly take things forward. Although we say this is a school of digital health, we are actually placed in a university which has medical colleges, dental colleges, pharmacy colleges, nursing colleges, and even engineering colleges and other. We are actually slowly starting adding at least one credit course on digital health architecture, digital health applications in probably all these colleges, so that, as you rightly said, everybody needs to be sensitized in digital health. There's literally no other way forward. And I think this slowly starts building a momentum around digital health itself. And then when everybody is aware, then I guess that's when regulations also start to follow. Usually, in most cases, regulation follows innovation. You can't have regulation first and then innovation coming later, although all innovators think that would have been great. Regulation usually follows when things reach certain amount of maturity. The second area that you actually mentioned, which is we should include a small component of digital health services as part of trials. I think this is also one area that we are trying to simply document the operational parameters of digital health services. Now, there is an analog service, there is a digital version of the same service. The outputs or the endpoints are more or less the same, but the process which both actually takes are different, and there are advantages. Sometimes there are also challenges in pursuing digital health services. So what we are trying to do is map the analog services first, and then see how to map the digital equivalent of the same service, and at every step see what are the simple parameters like time taken. Sometimes we assume that digital services are faster, but not really.
I'll give you one example on that. So I was talking about decentralized clinical trials, and then one of the clients that we are talking to, said we've already done decentralized clinical trials, but initially our assumption was doing a digital trial will reduce the cost. But no one is equipped to actually use the equipment. No one is used to actually download these apps. The patient, the nurses. We have to include a few more people to train them.
Yes.
And then so what happened was the overall cost of doing a digital trial was more than actually doing a traditional trial, because we have to do it. But if you say that, okay, let's say I'm a pharmaceutical company, so for me that's the only trial that I'm doing. But from the hospital perspective, they are trained once, they might actually do more trials. So that's what I was, but from pharmaceutical perspective, there's an additional cost.
See, again, there are different ways to explain. Usually digitization, the benefits of digitization happens at scale much later. But when you go through the process, it's actually an expensive one. And it's not just cost. In most cases, time is also more, because as you rightly said, you need to train people, and sometimes it's much faster to write something, although you may not be able to read what you write. But the same thing when you are actually typing, it actually takes 3 times more time. Maybe when future technologies like your LLMs actually come, or voice recognition comes, it might reduce the time taken to document. But I think there are again challenges with regard to voice recognition, especially when it comes to healthcare terminologies or healthcare voice. So there are advantages, and what we as a school want to broadly do is map the services and map the what you call a digital equivalent of all these services, and divide them into segments and say, maybe certain segments already work. I think it's better than analog. Certain segments, it's not that digital services are great, but that also gives us an option to probably innovate and then make them actually better. So that kind of a what you call some kind of a framework or some kind of a white paper is something that we would actually want to create, so that you can't have two competing systems. You can't have analog system partly doing its work, you can't have digital system partly doing its work. So it all has to be on analog or digital. But if it all has to be digital, then it has to be better at every step, not just at 1 or 2, 3 steps and then say, okay, rest of it is going to be complicated.
I think recently I just started working with few hospitals in Dubai. I think you rightly said the voice recognition part. I think they are completely digitalized already. Most of the doctors never write now anything. They just talk to their patients, and then they have this approved voice recording systems. Of course, this will not happen. This was also implemented in Japan. It did not work because of the pronunciations you have, and then the complexity in the language, the natural language processing, and then the medical terminology, and then the complexity. But in Dubai, it worked because they actually, all the doctors were trained on this. They know what to speak. There are a set of questions they always ask, and then this is being recorded in a very organized way, and then you get trained on that. So that's what I'm saying. There is huge scope even in India or any other countries, because we all speak English, but we all have different pronunciations. So this is going to be a bit more challenging for us, but
it will be a lot more challenging. In fact, there are 2 issues that you highlighted. One is complexity of local language, and the fact that when you have a long traditional established way of doing, people are a little bit reluctant to change. Middle East, in fact, everything is happening only in the last 5 years or at best 10 years, and whatever you would want to do is actually starting from now, from current, and you can actually retrain them and then start from the beginning. When you go to Japan, things have been happening there for the last 50 years. The language is also a bit complicated, too much pronunciation issues and too much individual modifications. When you come to India, 22 official languages. I don't think there is any other country in the world which is more diverse but also more complex with regard to languages and several other issues like India. So I think there are challenges, but as you rightly said, in certain pockets, in certain specific areas, I think digitization is actually happening. But I think that's also one way where we can segue a little bit. You're shifting to Middle East now?
Yeah, actually, I just set up our office, AKT Health, in the Masdar city. It's a health hub in Abu Dhabi. Of course, I'm actually living in Dubai. I've not completely started living there. We've just my son and my wife moved there, and then I'll be still based in Japan for half of the year next year, and then also focus on because what one of the other challenges that we saw in the last few years in Japan is obviously the currency has been gone like 50%, and then we also see the huge shift in the growth of India in healthcare and hospitals. There's like, and then I thought maybe Middle East is better accessible to the North Africa, Europe, and India. This is where the entire market is, and then I thought, okay, maybe shifting to the region would actually help us help our company.
Well, it's been great, fantastic talking to you. So, probably one final question and comment. Are you going to bring your car collection from Japan to Dubai, or are you going to create a new collection in Dubai?
As of now, I'm not thinking about. Actually, I thought a lot about cars.
It's very difficult not to stop thinking.
Yeah, but then we drive on the other side in Dubai versus Japan. Of course, I'll buy something new in Dubai because Dubai has a huge
its own car culture, I guess.
Its own car culture. I'm getting lost into. It's been 6 months. I'm still searching for a better car there. Which one is good? Because people drive very fast. It's very organized in an unorganized way. Driving in Dubai, Japan is very, very organized. And then luckily, because you have a Japanese driver's license, you can just get a driver's license in Dubai in 2 days or 2 hours actually. But then if you actually have to get a driver's license in Dubai, it's very, very complicated. So I think, yeah, I'll hopefully I'll get a Lamborghini Urus in Dubai.
See, there you see. I mean, there's always plans for cars.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, and it's been fantastic talking to you. And hopefully, we'll collaborate on some of the projects and some of the ideas that we discussed. And I think there's always a need for an extra pair of hands in analytics, and there's always a scope for collaboration from academia. And as you rightly mentioned, there's always a place where you can collaborate with India on the larger healthcare scale. So thanks a lot, and it's been fantastic talking to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.